Alright, now we're gonna work on this slider in 3ds Max, and the first thing we want to do is we're trying to create the silhouette or the case of the slider. So we're gonna start off with the cylinder because it has the shape that we're looking at, that we're looking for, and we're trying to start from. So we're going to create something probably about, let's just say, 18 or 20 sides, depending on how smooth we want it to be on the edges. And of course we're going to convert it to poly, and we're going to only use one side on each end. So we're going to extend the length because this is obviously is not going to stay a cylinder. So we're going to do what you can see here in front of you, and we'll try to change the size, probably the height of these vertices, depending on how you want this model to look like. So of course we're going to use the cut tool in order to bridge between these vertices because we don't want them to stay open like this, since we're going to use the high poly and the low poly, and for each case, or for generally speaking, we don't want to use n-gons because they're going to give us a hard time to deal with. Alright, so here we're trying to add other edges because we're trying to add a little bit more details, and so as you can see here, we'll try to extrude a little bit here because there are nice details when it comes to this model here. That's why we're gonna try to separate this tutorial into two parts, because I want to cover a little bit of these details as we go, and I don't want to create a long video or sped up video that we will really not get anything from. So for this one here, we will probably start selecting these polygons here because we want to use it as a base for the next piece, which is going to be the starting point in which from which we're going to try to add other pieces on top of this, the case of this slider. Of course, the size of this piece here is something we can change anytime or in any given moment, because we have full control over these things. We better make sure that we are making changes early on, because later it's going to be very hard to kind of make changes with the old pieces, especially if these pieces kind of built on top of each other and so on. So we're going to make sure that we block out the shape and the general look of our model early on, and if we want to change some of these things later, if it is worth it, go for it. Alright, so here we're trying to create this piece of metal here because it's interesting, and of course it's one of the most pronounced things we're going to see when we look at this model. And of course we're going to try to give it a little bit of our time here, and we're going to try to make it as good as possible because it's probably the first thing you're going to look at, so you're going to keep that in mind. Alright, try to actually put this in a place where it seems like it is acceptable and it fits nicely, because also it seems like this piece here is the shape of the cylinder, and the kind of the cape we created here, or whatever that is, it's not compatible with this cylinder we're trying to put inside, or this wheel. So we're gonna make sure that we're not gonna leave very big and empty spaces. Alright, here we're trying to use the alignment tool in order to make sure that these vertices are kind of moving along the edges or the faces or whatever you're using. Alright, I think here I made sure that we're gonna actually use all the space we have, and we're not gonna leave lots of empty spaces. This is a good thing because we don't want to make it look silly or kind of our space is not used properly. Alright, so the shell modifier here is gonna help us to make the this piece here make it kind of look like it is something that has thickness, and it is something that looks realistic. Because if this piece was something that we can't look at from the inside, we could have left it as it was. But otherwise, we have to use the shell modifier in order to make sure that the faces from the inside are not gonna look kind of weird and transparent when we look inside. Alright, so for this piece here, this is gonna be kind of a wind blocker or something like that, because it seems like it's an important piece when it comes to the functionality of this later. So please don't don't pay so much attention to the black surfaces on the outside, because actually the normals are flipped, and when we apply the shell modifier, this will be fixed. So here we're gonna try to add a few edges, and by the way, if my voice seems a little bit different, I kind of was a little bit not in my best days. I had a kind of a cold or something like that. Alright, we're gonna try to add a few edges because they're gonna be kind of empty spaces in between. So we're gonna make sure that we're gonna set up some edges properly in order to create kind of these gaps. Alright, it seems like there is something interesting going on here. So for now, we're gonna add a few other more edges because we actually want to give a little bit of interesting shapes when it comes to these gaps here, because we don't want them to be actually rectangles. We want to we want them to be kind of smooth and solid up when it comes to the upper part and the lower part. Also, we're going to work on one side only because later we're going to use the symmetry modifier to bring the other side, and we don't, in the same time, the good thing is that we don't want to work on the same thing twice. Alright, so when we're done, we add the shadow modifier in order to give this piece a little bit more thickness, as you can see. Also, it seems like when we apply the shadow modifier, there are a lot of things that don't go right in the first time. We have to fix them. Also, we want to flip this about 180 degrees because I like to work on it from this side because it seems better and easier. And here we are trying to create another piece. Alright, so this is kind of a cap for the kind of the exit or the liquid that comes from the lighter. So this is kind of blocks out anything that comes out of the lighter. But for the time being, we're gonna rotate it 90 degrees. So first of all, we're gonna try to create it in the right place. Then later, we're gonna rotate it about 90 degrees because we can't really see what we are modeling if we keep it this way. So we're going to transfer this vertex or these vertices in the corners. Alright, so when we are confident that this is what we want, we're going to give it the shadow modifier. But for now, we are trying to add a little bit more edges, as you can see. Alright, as you might as you might have guessed, this is kind of probably there is going to be a little bit of work to this piece. Probably we're going to try to make things a little bit smoother around the corners. Using the shadow modifier is a great thing because using the the chamfer tool is a great thing because it makes a lot of these things easier, like adding multiple edges or smoothing corners and kind of chamfering angles and polygons. It's an awesome tool, really. And there is a modifier, but I think it is still not perfect yet. The modifier. Alright, here we're going to delete these polygons because it's important that we do this because this is going to be extended and the other side is not going to be extended. Alright, we're going to push it to the side like this using the symmetry modifier mirror. Alright, make sure that you're adjusting everything and just make sure that where these two pieces are going to meet each other, just make sure that the vertices are not kind of overwelded and it's kind of weird, and it's going to make you walk through some problems later if you don't make sure that everything is working correctly from the start. So here also, this piece is we're not done with it yet. So there are a few things we need to take care of. For example, here we need to add a few edges because we are gonna extrude some polygons, as you will see in just a few minutes or a few seconds. Alright, extrude these polygons down, or we can do something else. We'll try this first and we'll see how this goes. Probably we will work with the with another method. Alright, it seems like we did that. We created a bridge between these two openings, and it is actually all opened up. And for now, we are trying to create the actual cap that is going to cover the opening of the fuel tank. We'll just call it that, of the lighter. Okay, we are actually deleting the polygons that we don't need, and using the tools we have, we're going to create something that looks like this. All right. So push it down a little bit because we want to change it more than this. Push this even further. Alright, we are creating a cylinder right now because this place here is kind of jammed, and there are a lot of pieces here that are gonna be here, so bear with me. Probably we're gonna fix things as we go and add some things and remove things, but in the end it's gonna be worth it because it's gonna look nice and interesting. We're gonna create multiple cylinders, as you can see. Also, we're gonna create a spring. It's gonna be nice. Alright, this is nice. We are trying to put lots of pieces in there, and probably we're gonna it seems like that cylinder we created first was not really needed. Alright, so we're gonna change the color of everything here, and we're gonna apply the unified material probably. Also here, this is where the opening is supposed to be. Alright, so we'll try to extend things a little bit like this. Of course, you need to keep holding shift all the time. We could actually, you need to if you are a smart 3D artist, you're gonna make sure that you understand the processes and for example, between modeling, UV unwrapping, and texturing and baking, you need to actually do this stuff, but you need to keep in mind that you're going to make things easier for you when it comes to the processes that come later. For example, when you try to model, you're going to keep texturing in mind. When you try to also model, keep baking and working Substance Painter in mind, because there are some things that kind of you do in modeling and UV unwrapping that will make it harder for you when it comes to the later stages. So for example, in order to make things easier for you when it comes to texturing, try to actually separate the pieces that don't have to be stitched to each other. For example, these pieces here, we don't actually have to model them starting from one piece. We can actually separate them, and this is going to be way better because it is going to give us more control. Alright, this spring here, as you can see, is going to add a lot to the details and how this lighter looks. Feel free to add in as many laps as you want, or rings as you want, because the more complicated it is, the better. But since this is a small prop and it's probably not going to be seen at all by probably it's not going to be that important, we don't want to add small pieces that consume a lot of polygons and kind of have less importance compared to the other big interesting pieces. For example, here we're trying to create a screw. And in order to do this, we're going to follow these simple steps I'm following right now. Actually, this is going to be part of the floating geometry, so this is not going to be part of the geometry. It's kind of, we're going to use it, we're going to bake it in the normal maps and stuff, and the other maps. Alright, so we are extending these polygons because we want to kind of create an illusion that it is actually carved in the metal. Alright, as you can see, we're copying these pieces to other places. Alright, as you can see here, this is the FFD modifier, or what we call the freeform deformation modifier, but we'll try to kind of create something interesting here using this modifier, and we'll try to push some of these vertices out a little bit and create something a little bit curved. But it seems like the other pieces are kind of following, or the other vertices are kind of moving in a strange way, which is absolutely something we don't want to deal with. So if this doesn't work, we probably are not gonna use it, because honestly this is not gonna have great impact on how our model looks. So probably we're not gonna invest too much time when it comes to this one. It looks terrible, by the way. There are so many things going wrong with this piece. Alright, probably in the end we're gonna do it manually. Alright, that's not as worse as or as bad as it's kind of looked before using the freeform deformation modifier. Alright, this looks better actually. Way better than it was before. Alright, so we're going to use this also as a floating geometry below, over here. Also here underneath this piece we are gonna try to create some nice interesting details. And we're gonna copy these polygons because this piece here is gonna be playing the role of a cap, so it's supposed to be separated somehow. Also, we're gonna make sure that we're gonna give it the feeling that it is really separated. Alright, so we're gonna make sure also that it is kind of positioned properly according to what I can see here in front of me in the reference image. Alright. Copy some of these pieces like this screw, put it on the other side, and we're gonna make sure that that we're gonna add some little details like this here. We're gonna extrude it negatively. It's gonna add a lot too. It's a small thing, but it's gonna add so much to how this piece looks. Also, we're gonna add interesting details here, like it looks like kind of a blade of a chainsaw or something like that. I love these shapes. It's interesting. Also here we're gonna add more details, as you'll see just in a few seconds. Chamfer these edges a little bit because we want them to be a little bit more smoother. Also to serve another purpose actually, not just that. Alright, after we add these edges, extrude them like this, extrude these polygons. Also, we gotta make sure that we are extruding by polygon in order to get something that looks like this. Alright, now it looks way better and much more complicated and detailed. Okay, for now we are done with the creating the basic geometry, and as you can see here, we're trying to create two layers, one for the high poly and one for the low poly. And what we will do is we're gonna work further on the high poly when it comes to support edges, and also we're gonna go further with the low poly version and remove all the edges and polygons that we don't really need. So now, as you can see, we are working with the high poly version, and we are trying to actually support all the edges because we are going to apply the Turbo Smooth modifier. Alright, so alright, this one is going to be a little bit interesting because it's tricky, and we're going to make sure that everything is going to be supported properly. So you're going to use the inset tool here, and we're going to try and test things out using the Turbo Smooth because we're going to make sure that everything is supported properly. And sometimes you could know until you apply the smoothing modifier. So we're going to reinforce it on the sides. As you can see, this one is a little bit kind of, it's tricky, and we're going to be way more careful than a regular piece because it's a piece that we need to support in an area that kind of we want only to affect the part that we need, and the other parts have to stay kind of not involved in what we're doing. So we're gonna try to target weld a lot of pieces, a lot of vertices, as you will see, because we don't want these support edges to affect other areas that need to be smooth and so on. This is gonna be not good. Alright, so as we weld all the vertices that need to be welded, and when we make sure that everything is correctly and properly supported, we're going to jump to the other piece. Alright, we're going to do the same thing when it comes to this piece. This piece here is also something that has a lot of corners and a lot of places that we need to support, and also we need to be careful when it comes to the areas that need to be kept smooth. This piece also is going to be the same thing. We need to support all the edges, and we don't have to forget anything because it's not gonna be good But we need, when we use the turbo smooth modifier, we can figure out what is going wrong. Alright, it seems like we're making a good progress, and we are actually seeing how our model looks like when we apply the support edges. Alright, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next part.